She went from earning $1.50 a week as a washerwoman to becoming the first self-made female millionaire in history. But the most incredible part isn't actually the money. It's what it took for her to get there. And when I think about this fact, in the late 1800s, 60% of Black women were trapped in domestic service. So how did this phenomenal woman come out of that completely? Because the business world wasn't just closed to Sarah Breedlove. For a Black woman in the Jim Crow era, this technically didn't even exist for Black women. At a time when there were only 40,000 Black-owned businesses in the US, she didn't just build a brand, she built an army. She trained 20,000 Walker agents, giving them the tools to earn their own bread so that they could buy their own homes. She saw a future where our hair wasn't the source of shame, but a source of power. She wasn't just selling products, she was sharing a vision and helping us to thrive, coming out of that survival mode and embracing what we were naturally born with. Now, before we move forward, we have to clear up one major myth. Madam C.J. Walker did not actually invent the hot comb. Heated metal tools originated in France in the 1800s, but they were built for completely different hair types. What Madam C.J. Walker did was innovate this product by taking it one step further, so it was specifically for coily and kinky hair types. She modified the physical design by widening the spacing between the metal teeth, allowing the comb to glide smoothly through dense, tightly coiled hair strands without catching, snapping, or tearing the hair fibers at the root. More importantly, she understood the female experience on a deeply personal level because she suffered herself. She knew that high heat applied directly to dry, fragile strands were a recipe for disaster. So she did something revolutionary by creating a system. She paired her redesigned press comb with her signature product, the pressing oil, and a Glossine, a specialized pomade formulated to create a thermal barrier on the hair shaft. The Glossine acted as a lubricant to prevent scorching, protected the scalp skin, and imparted a brilliant shine while managing the hair structure. She took her own lived experience, combined it with targeted chemistry and mechanical refinement, and built a reputable system that made thermal styling functional and accessible for our hair texture, likely having no idea just how deeply that single tool would echo through our hair routines for generations to come. Think about how many times you have straightened your hair. When I think about the amount of times I've used hair straighteners on my hair or a flat iron, in the back of my mind, I almost feel like there's something ingrained. It's almost like a subconscious ritual. We feel like our hair isn't truly done or neat or professional until every kink and curl that you have on your head is ironed completely flat into submission. But have you ever stopped to ask yourself why? Why is that? Why does a single reverted coil or curl decide to spring out, cause you shame or anxiety about you feeling like you're not good enough because your kinks or your curls are showing in their natural state? Because what if I told you that this styling technique and habit that we have on a day-to-day basis isn't just because of this modern trend that we have with our hairstyles? What if this was something a little bit deeper? What if I was to tell you that it's actually a biological and psychological echo of an industrial survival code engineered over a century ago? To understand why we do this, we have to leap back into the 1800s, early 1900s, so we can get a little bit of clarity as to why and how this has shaped the way we have a relationship with our hair today. I am going to talk about the US, but it's really important to highlight that this way of thinking is also adopted in the UK and across the world. I'm talking about the Great Migration. As hundreds of thousands of Black women migrated from rural fields into massive industrialized cities like Chicago, New York, and Detroit, they encountered a brand new battlefield, the corporate and industrial workplace. This meant in order for them to get hired in factories, domestic service work, or even in department stores, we had to do something with our hair. And that's because a lot of people deemed our hair as unfit for these kind of environments. Bearing in mind that the chemical relaxers, that creamy crack, didn't exist yet. Therefore, changing our hair structure wasn't part of a beauty trend. It was an absolute requirement to pass neatness in order to be accepted to work in these workplaces. Your hair was going to be a pass so that you could get into the doorway of these working establishments so you could earn a living for your families. This intense economic need is exactly what grew Madam C.J. Walker's business. We often talk about her as America's first self-made female millionaire, but we miss her true legacy. She popularized the hot comb not only as a vanity tool, but as an industrial mechanism for economic survival. Madam C.J. Walker herself actually suffered from scalp issues, which we don't hear much about. Part of the reason as to why she started with hair care was because she had severe scalp ailments. She also suffered from hair loss, and her original Walker system was designed to be therapeutic and to actually provide like medicinal treatments to the scalp. So before trichology was a thing, she created a system for people to focus on scalp health. And I think this is really important, a very important distinction that we make when we are analyzing how she captured the hearts of people, but most importantly, transitioned hair care into something a lot greater than just treating the strands. The tragedy is that over the decades, our community forgot that scalp healing part of the protocol, and it's actually kept only the extreme heat. When we think about using extreme thermal energy, using heating tools that literally go up to 220 degrees on your hair strands and the impact that has on the scalp. Unfortunately, I don't feel like a lot of us are considering exactly what we're doing when we use heating tools to this measure. We're talking about using heated metal up to like 220 degrees. I'm sure I've seen some that are like 250 degrees. And what that is doing to our hair strands at a scientific level is actually breaking and sometimes rearranging hydrogen bonds inside of our hair's cortex. And for a lot of people that use heat on a very frequent basis, that is actually catastrophic when you know you're going to be experiencing dryness and breakage. And figuring out a care routine that is going to help can be quite a challenge. That's because we are creating irreversible damage to our hair's foundation. The hairline is the most structurally vulnerable zone on your entire scalp. That's because the hair strands here have like a shallower embedment into your scalp. You have a thinner skin barrier around the edges of your hairline. So when you're applying heat around this very delicate area, you aren't just straightening your hair, you're also causing thermal scalp bubbling. This repeated heat exposure creates localized inflammation, and over time, your hair follicles start to miniaturize just because of the proximity it's had with the heat. And I know we speak a lot about hair loss associated with like miniaturization of follicles when we're talking about traction alopecia, but in actuality, there's more than one way to cause inflammation on the scalp that causes miniaturization, which causes skin to grow over those follicles and can lead to permanent hair loss. And these are things I really want to talk about because I think having the education behind styling practices on a day-to-day basis in the comfort of your own home is the most important thing. And these are conversations a lot of us aren't having in hair salons or with our friends, only focusing on the outcome of a style instead of the day-to-day practice we have with our natural hair. And we want to prevent permanent heat-induced hair loss, heat-induced alopecia. Madam C.J. Walker didn't just sell products, she built a beautiful community. Her Walker agents gathered in kitchens and living rooms, and it wasn't just about people coming together to sell her products. It was the sense of community that she was able to create with her brand, an opportunity to pour into each other and educate each other. And it's crazy because it's almost like today we're observing and living through the physical, like, example of that like vanishing in thin air where people aren't really coming together like they used to. It's almost like we're living through the exact same times, kind of, almost. I say that because I feel like there's been a lot of Black businesses closing, community centers closing, Black owned salons or beauty hubs are being forced off of the high streets and forced to close their doors. And when that happens, we don't just lose a business, we're also losing a place of sanctuary. We lose that physical space of safety, validation, and professional, dignified care. And unfortunately, instead, we are being forced to move our hair journey online. We're scrolling through video tutorials alone, trying to figure out what the best solution is for issues that we have, buying products in total isolation, while secretly carrying the weight and shame of hair loss. That's why I would love to invite you to one of our comb and braiding workshops that we host on a national scale up and down the UK. And I feel as though this video is really important to me because as someone who has been truly inspired through the life of Madam C.J. Walker, creating products has been important, especially those that are toxic free and are better for us. It's also been really important for me to make sure I have created a community so that we can all come together, reconnect with each other, and really just make sure that we are finding that nourishment that has been lost over the years within one another. So I would love to invite you to one of our Braid social cornrow and braiding workshops, it would be amazing to meet you. Either myself or one of the team members will be meeting you. And you literally learn firsthand how to cornrow, how to braid, and all the science behind hair education as well. So I welcome you and I look forward to seeing you at one of our future events. The link to all of our events will be in the description bar below. I'd also like to find out where you're from and how these two videos have inspired you. And I hope you enjoyed the video. My name is Sherine, and I look forward to seeing you soon.